Well, I think another week. We've got Jim Chalmers, who's going to have a big challenge with the Chinese to divest their shareholding in Northern Minerals. The Chinese are saying, bugger off, we're not doing it. Jim Chalmers is saying you needed to divest your shareholding in Northern Minerals by the 2nd of July. What's Jim Chalmers going to do? Is he going to force the issue? Is he going to take it to court? Is he? I don't know. It's a good question. Are they just lily-livered like everything else? Potentially, I don't know. Big, massive standoff. And then I think about the poor process of renewables, which is just terrible, and getting worse. There's no transparency in the cost. There's declining living standards in Australia. This government is presiding over the biggest decline in living standards that I can ever recall. And they're saying this is a good thing for Australia. Absolute crap. They're driving Australia into a third world country. The shops and restaurants in Melbourne getting burnt. Just terrible. Bringing back ISIS brides. I tell you what, we have really degraded into a third world country. We do not want to be a third world country. I do not want to live in a third world country. These lunatic politicians are taking us downhill. We should be improving the lives of Australians. We should be lowering the energy costs. We should be building industry in Australia, not hampering it. This is a terrible situation. High cost energy leads to subsidisation of the production of energy, the subsidisation of the consumption of energy, and moving to a third world country. I'll tell you, the next generation of Australians will remember this government and will remember this period of time for a long time. Thank you very much. It's Ross Johns here from the Wimmera Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. Enjoy your day.
The snowy mountains, a vast, untamed wilderness where, for over 2 centuries, a remarkable creature has carved out a life against the harsh realities of nature. The wild Brumby. These majestic herds, bonded by blood and fierce loyalty, are a living piece of our heritage. They wake with the sun, navigating the rugged terrain with a grace that has come to define the very spirit of the high country. But today, the silence of this sanctuary is broken, not by the forces of nature, but by the hand of man. A shadow has fallen over Kosciuszko. A 3-month aerial shooting campaign has begun. Imagine the terror, driven from the shelter of the bush by quad bikes, forced directly into the open and into the firing line of helicopters. These family units running to the point of utter exhaustion, desperate to protect their young, only to face an agonizing end. Trapping operations have been halted, humane rehoming efforts silenced. This is no longer management. It is a tragedy unfolding in the heart of our wilderness. Around the world, other nations have found another way. Humane alternatives exist, paths of compassion that respect both the land and the lives within it. Millions of dollars, now spent on eradication, could instead fund a gentler, more civilized future. The heritage of these wild horses cannot be reduced to a line item in a budget. The world is watching. We cannot let silence stand for cruelty. The Australian Labor government must hear our collective voice before the high country falls permanently silent. Stand for those who cannot speak for themselves.
We're doing our broadcast here. As you can see, I've discarded the jacket. I'm being a bit loose. It's cold. Give me a break. It's freezing up here. We're going to be here all week. We're going to be looking at what's happening to these majestic animals. They are just incredible animals. They are part of Australia. They have as much right to live as any other species in Australia. And I feel very strongly about it. I think it's a disgusting state of affairs. It's not what Australia should be. We're broadcasting live this week, as I glance, because my teleprompter is not here, this week from the snowy mountains to continue our coverage of the New South Wales Government's quest to eliminate the wild horses that are as much part of the landscape as the people are. We will speak to many who have the most incredible knowledge and expertise who want to work with the government to manage these horses. But the government isn't listening. Why? And throughout the week, we'll tell you why. Let me tell you, the propaganda that's coming from the ISC and the state government, I have to tell you, in our past life, we dealt with the Ukraine-Russia or the NATO-Russia war. We had people on the ground and within government. Same thing with Israel and also with Gaza, China, all sorts of things. This, to me, is one of the great travesties of justice I've ever seen. This is just a rort. And I don't care what they say, Jack Goff, it will all come unravelling. Chris Minns, Penny Sharp, you are a disgrace. As Australians, I am ashamed to call you Australians, and so are many others. But the propaganda or the misinformation that you're peddling, it's called an information operation, peddle it out. The Four Corners story that I saw, stacked with friends of, or people that worked with, or got a job later with the ISC. It's incredible. We're not going to take it. We're not going to stand for it. And you may think you win these little battles. You cannot kill these animals. These animals, these horses, I mean, they are such magnificent creatures. And by the way, I am not a horse person, but we're going to do something about it. We need to stop trashing our history. We owe these horses. Just think about it. 130,000 Brumbies went over in World War I with our troops. All except one, they were killed. They died in the line of duty. We have a responsibility as humans, as Australians, to ensure that those Brumbies who are doing very little damage, if any, maybe to the trout, who are also an invasive species, but that's not true, but they're the invasive species. So we're going to do our very, very best this week and forever, because we can't just say, we'll stop this cull, which is just about finished anyway. We need to make sure, not us, we're just the vessel, the voice of, to make sure it never, ever, ever happens again. Don't copy Victoria. Don't copy other parts of the world in getting rid of our beautiful, majestic creatures. The wanton campaign of killing, it just sums up the government, the federal, state governments, organisations. By the way, Jack Goff, I didn't vote for you. If anyone voted for Jack Goff to determine the future of Australia, put your hand up and I'll tell you you're a bloody liar. These, I call them bridge gluers. They're the ones that used to glue themselves to the road. And now they're controlling this country, and it's going to stop. It has to stop. More and more, we see our land, its animals, and the livelihood of Australia being destroyed under the guise of environmental protection. Australians need to take note of what's happening. The federal government, which Ashley Avis will be with us in a second, the federal government is by 2030, where have I heard that before? By 2030, they're going to take back 30% of the land and water surrounding. So 30% of the land and 30% of the oceans. They're going to take it back. They're going to destroy rural communities, already in Tasmania, backed up by the federal government. How's this for a rort? It was in Tasmania, 223,000 hectare property, 3 dairy farms and cattle. It's been bought now by a forester who wants to plant pine trees. Pretty Australian, isn't it? Pine trees there and put in wind farms, turbines. That's great. It will destroy an economy there. It's going to destroy the landscape and so forth. Those wind turbines kill those magnificent birds. 20 wedge-tailed eagles around Yass have been killed. These are magnificent creatures. Don't forget all the other animals that can't live within 400 metres either side of the wind turbines. But this company in Tasmania, this British company in Tasmania, because they were going to move sideways and no more cattle, no more dairy farms. Because they were doing that, the federal government also stumped them up, helped them out a bit, so that their bid was the superior bid. And then it had to go back for adjudication to make sure it's the right thing for Australia. And guess who was the adjudicator? The mob that had stumped up this other crowd to buy the property in the first place. I mean, it's just if Ashley Avis must be listening right now thinking, God, it sounds a bit like the Wild West. It is. We're killing the horses. We're killing the country. We do need to stop. We have to stop. Government is letting us down. Government is doing Australia damage. Whether it's New South Wales or Victoria, Queensland even. Look at the Tasmanian government. They're all over the shop. Federal government, Chris Bowen, Murray Toad Watt. Looks like a toad apparently. You know, everywhere he goes, he destroys the environment, and he's our environment minister. So the whole thing is just a complete abomination of common sense and decency. Now, we've been running polls here, part of our new offering. We've got other things happening. One, I'll be getting a teleprompter, so I don't have to keep looking down, so I apologise. Instant Polls is our official sponsor. If you want to increase the bottom line, boost your communication with your frontline staff, and gather valuable data from your most important source, and that's your employees, visit Instant Polls online to learn more. Now, today's poll fits in very nicely with what we're doing today on the Country Telegraph is, if a federal election were to be held today, how would you vote? And in this country, actually, we have to vote. So you've got to think about it for more than 10 seconds. Just use the QR code on our screen to vote. Each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. I've no idea what that means, but it sounds impressive. If you have 24 hours to vote before the result is broadcast on the Country Telegraph tomorrow at 1 p.m. Now, the link will also be published on our Facebook page from 9 a.m. Share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. Next up, we'll be talking to Ashley Avis all about this. And this, by the way, Jack Goff says, we don't want a bloody American here. Jack Goff gets stuffed. That's all I can say. Ashley, that's what we say often to people that we love. Not really, but it's a colloquialism, as we would say, that is going to, that sends a message. Jack Goff, Chris Minns, and Penny Sharp. What have you done to your hair? Looking like a wharfie, that's what I think anyway. That's my own humble opinion. And at the moment, I have no humble opinion, I just have an opinion. So Jack Goff gets stuffed, and the ISC, go back to your bridges and glue yourself on those roads, because we don't want you here. We do not want you here in Australia. We do not want to see you again. We want you to leave us alone. We don't want to go back before Captain Cook, and we most definitely do not want to go back before the dinosaurs, and that's where you're taking us. This is the Country Telegraph.
I didn't choose this life. I was born to live it. So was Dad, his dad, and his dad before that.
Come on, ladies.
You're supposed to be slowing down, you know.
It's payback for the free labour you got out of me as a kid.
I learned from watching my mum and dad and how they work together. So does my sister Sally.
Any trains? Righto. Feet up.
I'll always remember these days. It's the happiest days of my life. Together as a family.
Oh, you're so lucky I love you.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that about right, is it?
I don't know how you're going to deal with all this.
Deal with what?
$6 million debt?
Most farmers are in this amount of debt. As farmers, we gamble with the weather every day, and it's a risk we take. You have no idea what I'm going through.
Maybe you should talk to someone.
Oh my God, no, I'm fine.
No, you're not, Alison.
You and your dad's coward.
Play a game of footy, all right?
Where's heaven?
What?
Where's heaven?
The sky, I think.
Can we go there?
I gave my body to early mornings that smelled of leather and dust. I learned obedience before I learned rest. How to move when asked how to carry weight. How to carry out my purpose. They praised my strength as long as it served them. They called it loyalty. They called it love. And I believed them. Until one day the hands I trusted disappeared. The voice that knew my name went quiet. I wondered when devotion became disposable. Still, I lift my head toward the light because I remember open skies. Because my legs remember what freedom feels like. And even cast away, even forgotten, I carry this truth softly. I am not finished. Hope still runs in me. I'm Atticus. Please, raise your voice so no horse is ever lost to the slaughter pipeline again.
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. I'm Mike Ryan. We're doing it from the Snowy Mountains region. Today we're in Cooma, enjoying the warmth. That's why I just have a shirt on. But man, oh man, it gets cold. Being from the Gold Coast, I find that the Gold Coast has lovely weather. Today I could almost be wearing shorts, but not here, otherwise they'd take me away. Ashley Avis is an award-winning filmmaker, journalist and passionate advocate for the wild world. She is known for writing and directing Black Beauty for Disney, starring Oscar winner Kate Winslet and Mackenzie Foy, and the Critics' Choice nominated documentary Wild Beauty, Mustang, Spirit of the West. In 2020, Ashley founded the Wild Beauty Foundation to bring a bold new voice to wildlife protection through storytelling, education, and legislative advocacy. Her work is featured in Time, Deadline, and other major outlets, and in 2023, she received a special congressional commendation. In addition to filmmaking, Ashley is a great journalist with bylines in Rolling Stone, where she writes on the urgent need to protect wild horses and public lands. Her passions include developing new programs for the WBF, documenting environmental injustices and introducing children to the beauty of the natural world. Ashley, thank you for joining me.
So much for having me again, Mike. It's good to see you.
Yes, we're doing it. I haven't got the comfort of my studio. I feel it's like the panic beforehand. It's always controlled panic, not. And it gets exciting. But you know what it's like to do outside broadcast or remote broadcast. It's a challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's exciting that you're on the ground there, despite the tragic circumstances. It is a beautiful place in the world to be able to spend some time.
And such a beautiful place, and the desecration of this beauty. How disturbing is it?
I really don't have words, and I write for a living. Having spent the past few weeks in Australia and getting a deep dive look into this so rapidly, and going into the Kosciuszko National Park and actually seeing firsthand the beauty of the wild horses we did see, the wild Brumbies, but then to actually hike out and film the devastation of several horses, in particular the Palomino stallion that is so iconic to so many people, from the locals to photographers to people around the world that have seen that horse and his family. seeing him and the mare, his daughter, that was killed, which the parks are claiming that they're saying that they didn't do it, which I think is questionable based on everything I've heard. But seeing that devastation and seeing that death in person is something so haunting that will never leave me and has only dug my heels in further to continue fighting to illuminate this.
I'm just, we won't show the images because they are too graphic, but just so that people understand, those that who live in the area understand, many have seen some pics and stuff. Instead of us showing the image of the poor horse that you spoke to Jen about this morning, can you just describe it? Because I think words with the emotion is what is required, because images, you can become quite detached, I think.
Certainly so. The most heartbreaking part of it really is I never got to know him in the wild. In our wild horse work in the States, we've documented certain families and certain horses for years, and it's devastating to see them taken off the range or rounded up or broken apart from their families. But I have seen images of that particular horse, and it's no wonder he was so iconic. I mean, he was absolutely remarkably beautiful, and one of these icons that draw people in and are the reason that you come to an extraordinary place like the Kosciuszko, and a photographer who has been wonderfully supportive and so critical in this fight is Kiki Schoberg. And she has these images of that stallion that just take your breath away. And they embody the gift that he was and why it's so tragic that he's been removed. And so to see those images and then to drive into the park, knowing that hopefully we weren't going to be told to leave again by the rangers, but we went in and it was raining and we hiked out, and it was about a 15-minute hike. And it was myself and our cinematographer and an assistant, and we hiked through the bush and we saw the body of the mare first, and she didn't even look real, Mike. After you lose a life, obviously there are certain things that happen to a carcass, and it's very, very hard to see. And I understand why it's difficult for anybody to look at imagery like that. But what disturbed me the most about seeing her, she was this beautiful black mare and with a white sock, just like Black Beauty. And I couldn't see her head. And when I was walking around the body, at first when we got there, I kind of collapsed to my knees because it was just, I've never seen anything like that. And I've documented some pretty difficult things in my career with horses. But as you walked around her, it looked like her head had been severed. And at first I was looking at our cinematographer and I said, what happened? Did somebody take it? But then as I knelt down, her nose was tucked underneath her body. Her head was underneath her body, and her neck had broken with such severity that it was a clean cut that looked cleaved off. And for anyone, and I know they're saying it was a rogue shooter, you can't get into the park without being tailed by rangers or Snowy 2 instantly. I don't believe for a second what they're saying is true, and that is my opinion as a filmmaker and journalist. But for that to occur, and again, Mike, I've documented wild horse roundups and I've seen devastation before. To me, it looked like she was brutally chased and that she tripped as she was perhaps getting shot. And again, that's my interpretation of what I saw. And then we hiked out to see the Palomino stallion, and his mouth was full of blood, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
The national, I think, the Parks and Wildlife Services. Now, the furthest thing from the truth, isn't it? Because I mean, you don't do this to any animal. These horses. I mean, tell me, you have been around horses for a long time, and by the way, I'm not a horse person, even though my throat does get sore at times. I'm just. How intelligent are these animals? I always, when there was a conflict, I won't mention it because it'll create all sorts of unrest, but the thought of killing innocent people and the terror that they would experience prior to that was just horrific. And the same thing with what's happening at the moment to the horses. these horses are highly intelligent, sensitive creatures. And they're not stupid animals, as people would say. They're stupid animal at the moment. And animals wouldn't do this. Are the humans? How intelligent are these horses, Ashley?
Horses are incredibly intelligent, and they have families just like us. And that's part of what is so horrific about this aerial cull that Jack Goff, Penny Sharp, Chris Minns continue to claim somehow is humane, despite public outrage that is growing into a global cacophony and roar that no, this is in my opinion, any intelligent, compassionate person is going to look at this and say, this is black and white, this is animal torture. To do this to creatures that have done so much for us, whether it's, as we've said, discussing this issue, they help build the country, whether it's yours or ours. They fought beside us in battle. They carried us through so many situations as human beings, and they have so much value now, whether it's on the landscape to inspire people, whether it's to write a great piece of literature like, or a film like The Man from Snowy River, or in the situations where we need to look at what does humane management actually look like, and keeping a certain amount of horses on the, in the park, and then having opportunities to rehome some of them, and allowing them to have other chapters, whether it's working with children or becoming partners in sport or doing therapy work with veterans. We've seen such transformative therapy programs with horses in the States, but it's important. And in our work with our documentary, with the different campaigns that we do for equine protection, it's so important to look at and remember these are each individual lives and individual families. This is not a statistic. This is a group of horses. Let's look at, the Palomino stallion and his family. Can you imagine a chopper flying over the park and driving that family in a state of trauma and terror? Horses are flight animals. And to do that to this intelligent, sentient being, and then from what I understand, they're supposed to fire at the back of the herd first. And to have the father of that family look back on his family getting shot down, there's nothing that can point to this being humane or a solution in any sense of the word. No civilized culture does this. And they keep doubling down, Mike. I mean, the mockery and the belittlement coming out of the Endangered Species Council, the gloating is so disturbing. That isn't leadership. And obviously, we are dealing with certain things in our country with just mockery and belittling and creating such divisiveness. It's disgusting to me, especially to be happening in such a beautiful place. I've fallen in love with Australia in the time I've been down here.
Well, Jack Goff, I have to tell you, I refer to his organisation as bridge gluers. They're the ones that used to glue themselves to the roads and on bridges to stop people from driving through because they wanted to have a protest. And these wackos, and the ISC is full of wackos and hypocrites. Not as far as I'm concerned, it's obvious. But what is disturbing, I mean, it's sure there's an information operation, they call it, or spreading of misinformation. The few reports that have made legacy media, one you were featured on, it's a little quirk you can do in the media. You sort of slant it. It's called nudging, and you can push an issue without being so obvious. So at the end of it, you think, oh, they mean well, but these people know well. And the same thing with a Four Corners documentary. I went through the people that were featured on it, and it showed you the emotional part. Oh, we love horses. Showed you the scientists that were saying, got to get rid of the horses. You're killing the park. One guy they had on, I've come down here a long time, and I've always gone fishing for trout. Trout aren't part of the natural cycle, or the natural, at the moment, or if you're going back 300 years ago, they were never there. I'm not saying that they don't belong there, but they were never part of the environment in the first place. Yet it's okay for the trout. I mean, so the guy can come down fishing. Those terrible bloody horses, they want to have a drink of water. So we have the slanting. That was the slant on all those issues. And your one, when Jack said, we don't want a bloody American. Well, at this stage, we actually probably need all the help we can get, because the bloody Australians, being led by Jack Goff, are leading us to oblivion. And he might say otherwise. But I do believe that Jack Goff and the ISC joined at the hip with the New South Wales Government, Minns, who's an absolute lion, Penny Sharp. I mean, truly, go back to the abattoirs. I mean, that's where you belong, because that's the empathy that you have. How do you, as a person that's fighting, and we're not talking about a bull ant or a blowfly, we're talking about horses here. 130,000 of those horses died fighting for this country. And the horse in those days, it experienced the terror that the humans felt when they were being shot at and killed. So the horse knows exactly what is happening. How do you feel, though, when you have a guy that's crawled out, has got scraping his knuckles as he walks along the road, and he says that we don't want a bloody American? How did you actually feel? Do you think that, okay, Australia or the media has lost the plot?
I was not shocked when I saw that clip on A Current Affair, given I had done my research on Jack and had read his op-ed. The title was something about a stupidity stampede. And then he's in the recent article that I was quoted in, claiming that he's getting death threats. And look, violence and that kind of behavior, threatening people or threatening to harm people, that has no place in animal advocacy.
We've lost Ashley. Cam, bring me back for a second. We just lost Ashley for a second. Ashley will come back in a sec, as Cam needs to bring me on my full frame. Just push that one, it says Big Me. There we are. Ashley's back again, I think. Yep. Cam, push the next one.
Oh, there we go. I'm so sorry about that. I was just saying, I'm not sure where I dropped off, but I was saying, Mike, when I saw Jack's comments on A Current Affair where he's cursing on a news program, I mean, that's not leadership. This person has no business being in the position that he is in. And clearly he has an agenda that is not pure, that is not driven by an environmental agenda strictly. I don't trust anything about him. And, I was sent a PDF and some videos that have been done by the Invasive Species Council. And there was a document that is quite literally titled, How to Get People to Accept Lethal Control of an Invasive Species. It's not about understanding public attitudes or evaluating management options or assessing any ecological evidence. It literally looks like a how-to manual to get Australians to accept that this is the only way, that horses are destroying the park, when they're completely ignoring a litany of other things. That is not a pristine ecosystem. You've got human created elements from Snowy 2 to different structures that are in that park. There are so many. What's really driven my quest for transparency and understanding what is really going on here is, why is the Brumby a smokescreen and what is it for? Because in the States, like we've discussed in the past, our wild horses are a scapegoat for the cattle industry, and that's tax subsidized livestock grazing. So why are we looking at the Brumby over here when there's something else going on over here? And I'm digging into some documents that I've been sent that I can't discuss live on air at this point, but yeah, no matter the way you cut it, the leadership involved in this issue and the people making decisions are disgraceful.
Yeah, they are. Look, they're going to kick it off again in November. Another season for the killing of beautiful creatures. I mean, they even go on with the bird flu. We had Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm sure you know of Dr. Peter McCullough. And he quoted examples of where their reasoning is just way off beam. But because we're government, or we advise government, we're right and you're wrong. But they're going to kick off the killing season again in November. we actually have to put a stop to that. And there's many well-intentioned people within the whole movement looking after, movement sounds bad, the whole concern of a group of or great number of people. And we have to be just a bit careful that we don't sort of branch off into areas that are a little more self-interest than looking after the horses, because the horses are the only reason why we're doing any of this is to stop the senseless killing of these beautiful horses. Just quickly, two things. What are people saying about this overseas? And secondly, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
Oh, thank you, Mike. Our way into helping with this issue is through storytelling and journalism and combining that with advocacy to get people to look. And so that's where we're trying to help, is to drive that international awareness. And we've been seeing that. There are a number of actors that I'm trying to get in touch with and have gotten in touch with through my professional career. Maybe it's a talking point once some of them come out, but I've been discussing this issue with some of the cast of the Taylor Sheridan shows, who most of which are very horsey people, and they're disgusted that this is happening. And what's so tragic, Mike, is, like I said a few moments ago, in my time in Australia, I've fallen in love with the people, with the landscapes, with the wildlife. And the comment that I'm starting to see online is, boycott Australia. Why would anybody want to come to the Kosciuszko National Park to bring their family or to ride horses through those extraordinary mountains and see the carcasses of iconic animals left there to rot? And, you know, it's worth also mentioning that they're saying that that's not causing any ecological damage. You've got how many carcasses laying in, you know, waterways and sensitive areas that are they're just left. It's just, none of this adds up. Nothing that's coming out of the New South Wales government or invasive species adds up. But so we're going to continue to fight to drive that awareness and appreciate everything that you have done and your reporting and your courage. And that's what we're asking people to do, is to step up and have the courage to look, to share, and to use your skill set to do something to make a difference. And for people who want to follow our work, we're the Wild Beauty Foundation, and I'm at Ashley Avis.
Ashley, I have to tell you, it was just brilliant chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your endeavour. Contrary to what others are saying, you are doing a magnificent job, and I think keep up the good work. We do actually need the entire global community to stand up and tell the Australian government, New South Wales government, and of course the ISC, as we would say, to go to buggery. And that's what we need them to do. So you're learning some very bad language from me, and I apologise.
I love it, Mike.
I will go to confession later on if the church doesn't fall in on me. Ashley Avis, thank you so much. This is the Country Telegraph.
Our mantra has always been, we are here to softly promote and softly build up all of the winemakers of the region to say, hang on, what you do is great, what you produce is fantastic, and what we drink is well worthy of anything, anywhere, not just in Australia, but around the world.
I'm planting varieties from Cyprus, which is amazing, and looking at doing other Greek varietals too. So I think by doing this, it's really going to keep our culture strong here in Australia, because obviously we're very far away from Greece.
I then got the opportunity to make wines that I thought were suited to this region, and then put a little bit of finesse in, oak treatments, etc., to make them softer and more approachable wines.
It's pretty cool to be able to provide high value wines at those lower price points.
There's certainly quite a few of our varieties that you probably wouldn't find elsewhere in Australia. If you do, it's probably from our grapes.
A Riverland wine is above and beyond what you'll find anywhere else.
You know, the whole objective was to be proud of the region we're from, so Riverland is stamped clearly on the bottle and always will be.
There's a lot of positivity amongst the smaller winemakers, passion and pride in what they're doing. They love to showcase the region. It's a wonderful region.
Yeah, I think, you know, people will be pleasantly surprised by what they get out of Riverland.
Buy Australian made, and you're backing local jobs, a stronger economy, and the way we live right here. Australian made, made right here.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph, doing it live from Cooma here. And great accommodation too, more about that a bit later. We are very, very grateful to their help and support and making just about anything available. Always up for a great chat, so more about that later. We'll give you a link and stuff where you can go to, and you can, next time you're in Cooma or in the high country, a great place. Stephen Tripp is the founder and president of Australians for Better Government, vice president of Let's Rethink Renewables, and he's the host of Commanding the Narrative, the Emmy Award-winning podcast. He's been very busy doing a world tour, and we're very grateful to have him back. Now, Stephen leads an organisation that is encouraging people to rethink and reform the current system of government and demand more of our politicians. They advocate for reforming the Constitution, ensuring a true separation of powers, empowering voters, and enshrining our freedoms and instilling our pride in Australia, which at the moment, Stephen, I think you would agree, when it comes to the culling of these magnificent creatures, Australian pride is questionable, isn't it?
Well, it is from certain groups and parts of government. I don't think it's from the every Australian person out there, because I've seen a lot of commentary on this, and people are outraged by this. They're shocked and horrified that this is actually taking place here in our country, and it's bizarre why this is proceeding and why this is going ahead, because most people out there are saying there's no reason for this. There's no reason to go ahead with this. And you talk about the Brumby, an iconic animal here in Australia. I mean, I'm a big coin collector, and you look at the Perth Mint, how they put different animals on their coins. They use the image of the Brumby, and they have a whole series of that. It goes along with the koala and the kangaroo and the kookaburra that they also use. So the Brumby is really up there as a symbol of this country. And for this culling to be taking place just makes no sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. It makes no sense. It was also the on the weekend on Saturday. It was the Year of the Horse, to celebrate that. I just want to play this, and then I'll come back to you. This is just one of the many protests around Australia. This is.
Come on, guys, come down here and save our beautiful Brumbies. We're here at the protest in Albury. Come and save these beautiful horses.
Back again. Tell me this, looking at the ISC, you know politics very well. Jack Goff was a lobbyist, I think with the New South Wales Parliament, and apparently did a very good job. And he's moved sideways with the ISC, which is also relying on contacts and a lot of lobbying from that particular organisation with politicians. Tell me about your thoughts on lobbyists, and your thoughts on people such as Jack Goff moving sideways into an organisation that's determining the future of Australia.
You know, it's very, very interesting to look into the Invasive Species Council. It is an incorporated association from Victoria. There's nothing wrong with it being an incorporated association. Australians for Better Government is an incorporated association, so is Let's Rethink Renewables. A lot of political parties are incorporated associations. Even netball clubs and small things like that are incorporated associations, so it's nothing bizarre about that. But what is bizarre to me is when you go on their website and look at how many members they've got, they say, oh, we keep our membership low to keep the group under control. But in Parliament, they were questioned about their membership by the Honourable Robert Borsak from the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, and they had to disclose that the Invasive Species Council only has 131 members. So this group is representing 131 people, and you can see that by that protest that you just showed there's probably more people protesting about this than the members that the Invasive Species Council has. Now, it does also claim that it has 40,000 supporters. I don't know where those supporters are. I don't know if they're part of an email list or what have you. I see they've only got 33,000 followers on Facebook. There's about 11,500 followers on Instagram. Their YouTube page is less than 300 followers. So there's not an incredible amount of people following this group or supporting this group, considering the fact that there's over 5 million voters in New South Wales. It's only a fraction of the amount of people that are in the state. So the big question is, how did this group get so much influence within our government? And you look at this Jack Goff. I mean, it's widely known that his wife is a senior advisor to the minister, Penny Sharp. So where's the conflict of interest there? Penny Sharp, hey, she's living in the inner west of Sydney. What does she know about what's happening out in the snowy mountains and what these brumbies are actually doing, whether they're impacting the environment or not? And there's actually good evidence coming out of other countries, particularly in China, where they've introduced horses to barren areas and suddenly the areas have flourished. So I don't know where all this nonsense about brumbies being an invasive species is coming from, but there's big questions from me about this group and this group's influence, and it goes to a lot of lobby groups in the country, not just in the New South Wales Parliament, but also the federal parliament and other state parliaments around the country, and how much influence they have. How can a group like the Invasive Species Council, with only 131 members and supposedly 40,000 followers, I don't know how they confirm that they've got 40,000 followers, how do they have so much influence in our political system to the point where we're now shooting brumbies from helicopters and leaving them to rot in our national parks? There's big questions. And look, I think the whole lobbyist culture in parliaments really needs to be looked at, and some of this stuff needs to be disclosed. And if I was ever elected to Parliament anywhere in New South Wales or federally, or I encourage other parliamentarians to do this, when lobbyists come into your office and have meetings, there should be a little webcam sitting there on the table, and they should let the lobbyists know that, hey, this is going to be live streamed, so the Australian public, the voters, can actually see the discussions that are taking place, because a lot of this stuff is happening behind closed doors, and who knows what Jack Goff is saying to Penny Sharp, or his wife, or what his wife is saying to Penny Sharp, and what is being discussed behind closed doors. I think that needs to be disclosed.
Yeah, I do too. I think we have we just have, I mean, and I've mentioned at the start of the show that, for those that don't know, we had another station that did very well until it was interfered with. 75 people worked for us, but we dealt with various governments, and we dealt with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the conflict in the Middle East, China, even Taiwan, internal conflict, Starmer, all those. We did all that. To me, this smacks of, I'll say straight out, it smacks of corruption. And the corruption that is, because how can 130 members control the destiny of this country?
Yeah.
And they talk about wanting to take us back to the pristine, for example, Kosciuszko National Park, make it back to where it used to be. We can't do that. Jack Goff, we cannot do that. Penny Sharp, Chris Minns, anybody, you can't do that. You can't go back to the past, because what is present is determining our future. And these horses, for example, are part of our park, part of our life, part of our heritage. So what we have, I think, Stephen, is that we have an agenda that's at play. The agenda is spelt out by federal government on one hand, but they want it to take back at least 30% of the land, 30% of the land in Australia by 2030. They're going to, decimate rural areas and all that sort of thing, because they want to take it back and just let it grow back to where it used to be. And that would never happen. You will only have more bushfires. It does, though, create a problem with our food supply. If you look at the ALP and go back a bit, you'll see that they are very much keen of us, or support of us, importing our food. And so therefore, we have that food security is gone. The ALP in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and federal government, they are rorting our heritage. How do we stop that? How do we limit the power of the ISC, which truly are a bunch of bridge gluers, and truly are, in my opinion, for this to be happening, have no soul, no humanity, and are bordering on being absolutely evil. How do we put a stop to these, Stephen? You know how the system works. How can we stop these lobbyists who are not voted for and are very few in numbers? How do we stop them determining how I am, you are, anybody else in Australia is going to see the future?
Well, as I said, the conversations within Parliament needs to be disclosed, and I think they needs to be able to be viewed. I mean, if they're going to be having meetings with our parliamentarians, there should be, as I said, a webcam sitting there so people can actually tune in and see the discussions that are taking place. Or you take the further step of just banning lobbyists. Now, there are probably some good lobby groups out there that do need to be represented. They've probably got big followings behind them. So a blanket ban, may fix a lot of issues, but it may cause some issues as well. Look, I think it represents a wider issue, and it's something that we've discussed when I've been on the show before. It's not just this Brumby issue, it's a whole issue with the rural and regional areas of Australia being completely underrepresented in government. The problem is we have state parliaments and also the federal parliament where power's congested within the cities because they have more electorates. I mean, there's more people in the cities, and a lot of these decisions are being made from Macquarie Street here in New South Wales, in the New South Wales State Parliament, by parliamentarians that don't ever go out to rural areas, and it's hard to get them out to rural areas. We tried to get some Liberal members recently out to Dunedoo to see the wind turbines and the solar projects out there, and it was impossible. We couldn't get it done. It was only One Nation that finally agreed to come out and have a look. So this is a massive issue. How do we get rural areas better represented? And you have a look at the map of, the electoral map. You talk about Labor having so much influence over our farmlands and rural areas. Where are the Labor seats out in these areas? There aren't any. They're all congested in the cities and maybe areas of the Hunter and Wollongong. But they're having huge impacts of our rural areas, farmlands and people like that, where those people tend to vote Nationals, or sometimes they vote shooters, fishers and farmers, but they're completely underrepresented. They have these huge electorates with only one member of Parliament advocating for them. So we need to start looking at that. And one of my this is just a Stephen Tripp proposal. It's not a proposal of Australians for Better Government or any other groups that I represent. But we need to start having these conversations and start questioning these things. They say all politics is local, but we're having these decisions made by parliamentarians from the cities. I think we need to start looking at our governmental structure. I think we're completely over-governed. We have local governments, we have state governments, and then also the federal government. I think we need to get to a situation, and again, this is just my personal view, where we abolish local government and we start using the provisions in the federal constitution to create new states, where we start carving up the states into different regions, and that's how we govern. Each region will have its own state, and they could govern themselves, so you wouldn't be getting this influence from Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong telling areas like Dunedoo and areas like Coolah where you are, and other parts of New South Wales and also other parts of rural and regional Australia how they should operate, and also how farmers should operate. Because what good is people in the city telling farmers how they should be running their land or what species they should be culling? It's not just horses, they're culling bees, and there's all sorts of different things going on from people that are sitting in the inner west of Sydney. I'm on the northern beaches of Sydney. I have no idea about how to operate a farm or how they should be managing water or other issues. So I think we need to start getting to a system where government represents their local areas, which is how the system was meant to be set up, where you have elected representatives, representing your electorate. It's not quite working because we're getting these big issues in rural and regional communities. So we need to start having discussions on how to fix that. And my proposal is just one proposal out there. There may be better proposals out there, but we need to start having these conversations.
Yeah, we do too. Now, we've just run out of time, which happens because we have a good conversation and I have to stop. If somebody wants to find out more about your Emmy Award-winning, Pulitzer Prize-winning podcast, I always say nice things about you, Stephen.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope you say nice things about me behind my back as well. That'd be
always.
Yeah, you can head to commandingthenarrative.com, and that's probably the best way to keep up to date with everything I'm doing. And I'm also part of a group called Australians for Better Government, where we do discuss these reforms to our governmental system. You can find out more information at australiansforbetter.com.
We do need better government, and we need it now. And it's the election season coming up, Victoria, then New South Wales, and then a bit after that, I suppose, you'll have the federal and other state governments. So we do need, and we can make some a lot of change. Here's one more before I go. I always do this. In Victoria, the Victorian opposition have said they're going to review the rollout of renewables and stuff, so put a hold on it initially. When they say they're going to renew something or review it, I would dare say that the LNP, many have said this, the government will change hands. It'll be different faces, but very similar policy. How do we ensure that the LNP in Victoria, under Jess Wilson, how do we ensure that they put a stop to this renewable carnage?
Well, firstly, it's good to see that you're coming around to the message of Australians for Better Government, because I know you were a little bit sceptical of it in the beginning.
I'm never sceptical.
But that's the reason why I'm out there and I'm talking about it, because the more I talk to people, the more they start nodding their head. And it's quite complex to talk about at first, but the more I do discuss it with people, the more they start to understand that, yes, we do have some big deficiencies in the way our government is structured. But when it comes to the Victorian election, I mean, it's up to the voters of whether they have any faith in the LNP, firstly, to elect them. And I mean, there are other parties around, like One Nation, that they could also go towards and elect. I mean, it's completely up to the people of Victoria to do that. But then you have to hold the politicians to account. And currently, there's no real mechanisms in our system to hold the parliamentarians to account. I mean, you can email them and you can do petitions and you can protest and things like that. But we need maybe some structural things like citizens-initiated referenda or citizens-initiated veto, and also recall elections. These are things that operate in other countries and other states around the world. We need to look at what's working around the world about how we can hold parliamentarians to account and start enacting those here in Australia. And again, that's things that Australians for Better Government advocate for. You can find all our proposals on our website, australiansforbetter.com. But we need to start looking at those things, because currently, yes, it's very, very hard to hold our parliamentarians to account, and oftentimes they say that they're going to do something when they're on the campaign trail, but when it comes to government, they do something completely opposite, which we've seen with Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese recently, where they're starting to meddle with capital gains tax and negative gearing. That's something they said they wouldn't touch leading up to the election, but look at them now. So yes, we need way more accountability built into the system.
We do too. Stephen Tripp, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
The king may rule over land and sea. The lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. The sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The writer thinks, the poet sings, the craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, the miner follows, the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The merchant, he may buy and sell, the teacher do his duty well. But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways. From king to beggar, whatever befall, The farmer, he must feed them all. The farmer's trade is one of worth. He's partner with the sky and earth. He's partner with the sun and rain, and no man loses for his gain. And men may rise, or men may fall, but the farmer, he must feed them all. God bless the man who sows the wheat, who finds us milk and fruit and meat. May his purse be heavy, his heart be light, his cattle and corn and all go right. God bless the seeds his hands let fall. For the farmer, he must feed us all.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Mike Ryan here. Thank you so much for your time. We had a poll on Friday. It seems like a long time ago, and it was because we actually finished the show on Friday morning at 9 o'clock. The results, though, by the way, for Friday's poll, question was, do you believe that farmers and food production are under attack in Australia? Now, the majority of respondents, 87.5% said yes, compared to 12.5% who said no. Now, in terms of demographics, the age group 60 to 69 had the highest participation, and females were more engaged than males. And the distribution of responses by state shows Queensland and WA had the highest yes responses. That's our poll. I just want to go back on the current one, by the way, so I'm just scrolling up here to find where I'm at. We have the poll, by the way. It's our official sponsor, Instant Polls. Now, if you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication with your frontline staff, and gather valuable data from your most important resource, your employees, visit instantpolls.online to learn more. Now, today's poll, it ties in with what we're talking about. It's sort of bad government, bad decisions, no bloody respect for our beautiful Brumbies. Today's poll on the Country Telegraph is, if a federal election were to be held today, how would you vote? Now, if you want to vote, hold your phone up to the screen and you'll get the QR code will go something like that, and it'll activate, and you'll be amazed. You'll be able to vote. That's if a federal election were held today, how would you vote? Now, just use the QR code. As I said, each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. You'll have 24 hours to vote before the result is broadcast on the Country Telegraph, and we'll have those results at probably after 1 tomorrow. Now, the link will also be published on our Facebook page from 9 a.m. Share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. In fact, I think the link will go up earlier than that, probably up in the next hour or so. I'll have to get our link person employed specifically to do links. So they'll be linking away, going nuts and everything like that. This is the Country Telegraph.
Conservationist Stephen Nowakowski and academic Tim Navard have mapped over $1.38 trillion in so-called green projects across Australia, including 31,000 wind turbines, 550 million solar panels, and more than 28,000 kilometres of new transmission lines, with thousands more running undersea and across protected wilderness. Turbines run only 30 to 40% of the time, panels just 18 to 25%, demanding vast overbuilding and replacement every few decades. Nowakowski calls it hypocrisy of the highest order. Untouched mountain forests now being bulldozed in the name of green energy. After decades documenting the outback, he says he's never seen a threat like this. Dead birds, bats, even endangered species lying beneath the blades.
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. I'm Mike Ryan. Nice to have your company. We'll have more details shortly once our office girl, Lynn, can get me those details so we can have our website, and also we'll be able to phone numbers and stuff great accommodation here in Cooma. It's pretty cold to say the least, but we have the heater going. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. Our next guest, Miriam Gallard, lives in the Snowy Mountains region. Now, Miriam is a Brumby owner and experienced trekking guide and has quietly observed great changes occurring in our national parks since the 1960s. Miriam's father was a park ranger, so she has no axe to grind against park rangers. We talked to Miriam and others this week to try and understand how we got to a point that we think it's okay to shoot brumbies from the air, and that this cruel and deceptive campaign constitutes good management of the national park. Miriam, thank you for joining us. We have no sound. We probably need you to hit your microphone. It says mute. That's it. There we are. Look at that. Oh, we just knocked the... so Cam, come back to me for a second. I'll just keep filling in and doing this professionally. Otherwise, we have the giant hand. So Miriam, she actually knows what she's talking about. If you can see what I'm seeing at the moment, you'll probably go, wow. What I might do is... Miriam's there. Hello, Miriam. Cam, you might just end up. Miriam's there. She has bad internet. But tell me your thoughts on how the park management are handling this, because it would seem from everybody else that this is truly not chaotic. It's well organised, but it's something that park management should not be doing.
I think it's really hard on the ground staff. They have an incredible role. They have a lot of country to look after, and it's not just managing the animals, but it's an ideology that comes from above that's being pushed. So they're basically being told, this is your job, this is how you do it. There are some park staff who are great horse lovers, who ride, who've had brumbies in the past as their own riding horses. They have a great empathy for the brumbies. Not everyone, but some. So I think the ideology is pushed from above. And, they have to earn a paycheck just like everybody else.
It does put them in a bad spot, but these brumbies, I mean, and by the way, I keep telling people, first of all, I'm not a farmer. I lived on the land until I was 18 and then ran for, as fast as I could. The second thing is that I'm not a horse person, but I do recognise magnificence. So these horses, they have this heritage that we used to respect, and over a fairly short space of time, that respect has gone to just pure disdain, that we got to get rid of these bloody horses. If you go back, way before our time, maybe not my time, but, to the First World War, I was just a kid then. But if you go back then, 130,000 horses went overseas to fight with us, and one came back. And since then, up until about now, we've had huge respect for these creatures. And I don't know, I've got no idea what went wrong. Do you have any idea why we have this ambivalence or this almost disdain for our heritage?
I think it goes back to, there's been a big disconnect between rural communities and city communities. We have a lot of city people who move to the country, seeking that country lifestyle, but they don't inherently understand that bush people are stewards. We are stewards of the land and of the animals and our surroundings. So sometimes, yes, we have to make hard decisions about managing things. When I was a child, there was a horse sale at Jindabyne every year, and there were 2 pens of the most god-awful horses you'd ever seen knocked together in your life. Had horrible conformation, and they went to the doggers, and everybody agreed in those days that's where they needed to go, because they became a resource for something else, probably the pulp factory, or to make hoof grease or whatever, but they became a resource like most rural animals are. And so now we have an incredible disconnect. We've got lots of people who want to save every single horse. We've got other people who want every horse exterminated. And it's very hard to get people to meet in the middle. There's a lot of people who have very black and white thinking, which is, quite a toxic trait, because you need to be able to, walk a mile in the other person's shoes sometimes.
I think I'm one of those that think we should stop killing them, full stop. But it doesn't mean we don't control the actual the Kosciuszko National Park and other parks. It means that we have to, instead of spending $8 million to kill them, we spend $4 million. That's what it will cost. If you looked at, if you divided by 2, which is wrong because there are more females than males, but if you divide it by 2, and so that would work out under $4 million to neuter most of the horses. Now, I know it's a bit difficult, but it's a much more, one, it creates employment. I hate to be the person trying to catch that horse, because the horse is not going to be very happy, but it creates employment. It's a much more humane way of doing it. It means that the horse who is not destroying the environment, whereas Jack Goff would tell us it is, it means that as slow as it is and cumbersome as it is, it's a way around this senseless killing, because the thought of, and again, I have to own up here that I think that anything, for example, that was happening overseas, that innocent people were being killed, I always picture the terror of that individual and seeing families wiped out. And we have the same thing happening with the horses. They are very intelligent creatures. So I think that we do need to, in some way, stop the killing and look at other alternatives.
Definitely. My partner and I, we rode around after the week after the last cull ended, and we have come across, twice we came across 2 horses that had lost their families, and they're quite young horses, very distressed, wanted to come along with us. They just didn't know who they were, where they were supposed to be. And that's a very, very sad part, like these poor young horses that are just totally bereft. And they don't know where their territory is anymore. They're very frightened. That's heartbreaking when you come across those people.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. And then you look at the hypocrisy from the ISC and the various governments. You've got Snowy 2.0 happening at the moment. If you want to look at something destroying the environment, that is destroying the environment. And it's not to say it's not going to work either. So we're spending trillions and trillions destroying the environment, and then we're throwing most of that blame on those poor horses, aren't we?
Like I said, I think it's a very black and white driven ideology. Once upon a time, people used to go to church and sit in pews on Sunday, but now you have to be woke about something, or you're not a good person for some bizarre reason. It's become the new religion, and you're a heretic if you don't go along with it. Brumbies have been in the park for a long, long time. Like I said, when I was a child, it wasn't common to see them, and they were usually like whoosh, like quicksilver. They were gone, but they were there. They were managed by the locals. They were managed very well, and I know that the welfare aspects have been brought up before, but I have never heard any bad welfare aspects of running or trapping Brumbies in my life. More about the human welfare, where people have had bad falls and been injured in the process. I know it's been brought up before, but I have never ever seen that personally, and I've never heard like any stories of it either. And I'm sure it would have got back to me in the last 66 years if it had.
Another thing that I have to tell you, I get sort of we say gobsmacked. For those overseas watching, that means that. And I look at the people that work in the area that have been there generations, their families have been there for hundreds of years, and they know the park very well. They know the wildlife very well. They know the horses very well. Why? Can you just tell me your thoughts on why that's been taken away from the experts and given to those either that have been the ex-bridge gluers, in protest, who are running the country now via a proxy, or the government itself, who have people sitting in offices determining how say, for example, the Kosciuszko National Park should be run. And 10 cents to nothing. They haven't even been to the park, or if they have, they've been there for a day just to have a look around. Yet you have the experience from those that have lived there all their life. They know the park well, they know the horses well, and yet they're being ignored. How did we get to that stage?
It kind of goes back to when the park first started, when it was a state park and it was converted to national parks. There actually used to be rangers who were non-graduates, so they didn't have degrees. They were like my father. They'd been policemen, they'd been firemen, they'd been foresters. They had a lot of life experience, and so that's what they brought to the table when it came to national parks. So they could read a map, they could drive a four-wheel drive, they knew how to operate a fire tanker. You know, they had all these skills, and then that changed, and the national park said, no, all rangers must be graduates. So then you'd have, a new ranger start that have a degree whacked under each arm, and like Dad used to shake his head and say, "Oh my God, they're so useless. You know, they can't help me." and it's the same with the locals. Most locals don't have a degree whacked under each arm. We just have a lot of knowledge and a lot of life experience, and a lot, and a lot of time spent in the park. And so we know lots, but we don't have that qualifying degree that the park thinks you need to give advice.
It's a terrible state that we're in at the moment, and I despair, and I get very upset. I have sleepless nights because I hate two things. I hate cruelty to animals, and I hate bullies. And at the moment, both things are happening, and those making the loudest noise, who are not at all my representative or most of Australia's representatives, are determining our future, and I don't like it. I think that's just pure bullying. Penny Sharp, our aim is to make sure that you never get elected again, and our aim is also to ensure that Chris Minns never steps foot in Parliament again and has any say in our direction, because you are a disgrace. You are a liar and you are a disgrace. Penny Sharp, the same thing. As for Jack Goff, go back to buy yourself a bucket of glue and go and lie on the road or on the next bridge, because that's where you belong and that's where your organisation belongs. Miriam, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
I'm just on Facebook, Miriam Gallard. I'm probably the only one. Grew up at Jindabyne. That's it. I don't have Instagram or anything like that. Too old.
Good on you. No, you're not. You're never too old.
But anyway, no. But I always thought after the last coal, it would never happen again. And all the things that we said would happen did happen. You know, the pigs went berserk. People were just totally horrified, non-horsey people alike, by the carcasses. And even when you pointed out that standing operating procedures had not been followed, like I found horses shot close to a fire trail, which wasn't supposed to happen. A horse shot dead close to a campsite, not supposed to happen. In fact, my horse that I was riding stopped and neighed heartbreakingly at this poor creature, wanting it to get up. And of course it wasn't going to. So, you know, and every time you put in a survey or a please answer my question, you get the same thing. No, all the operating procedures have been, you know, done properly. And you just go, but so I'm the liar when I've seen it with my own two eyes. It's very difficult.
I think they talk about, Jack Goff's talked about the people objecting being, and this is on a radio interview, I think on 2GB, I think it was, and was saying that the people who are objecting to this are those that objected to the lockdowns. I mean, where were the people objecting to the lockdowns wrong? It's been proven what they were saying was right. And the same thing with this. What we are saying is entirely correct. We need to stand up for these horses. We need to show some backbone and do the right thing, not only for the horses, but for this country and for ourselves. Miriam, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it very much. We will try and do our bit, but we need everybody else to, there's a bit of angst at the moment. Get rid of that. You need to stop it. We need to get behind the horse. Think of the horse. Think of the damage. Think of our heritage. And all of us pale into insignificance. We are not going to be, as one person said, the man from Snowy River saving the Brumbies. We have to be strong, vigilant. We need to think about those poor horses. We need to do what we can, do it collectively, and just do the right thing by the horses, because it's not about me or you. It's about the Brumby. And unless we do something, do it collectively, do it properly, the ISC and the other governments will just roll over us. Miriam Gallard, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
Burrinjuck Dam is 98 years old. It was completed in 1928, and the concrete is deteriorating from the inside out through a process called alkali silica reaction, which is an irreversible chemical expansion that causes cracking and weakens the structure over time. In 1937, engineers discovered structural weaknesses so serious they drew up evacuation plans for 20,000 people living downstream, and the dam has only aged since then. Right now, Burrinjuck holds 1,026 gigalitres, but the catchment it sits on covers nearly 13,000 square kilometres and routinely delivers far more water than the dam can store. In October 2022 alone, around 1,200 gigalitres flowed into Burrinjuck in a single month, more than its entire capacity. And the excess had nowhere to go but downstream into communities that ended up flooded. That year was Australia's costliest natural disaster on record, with $5.56 billion in insured losses and 10 million tonnes of grain destroyed. The proposal is to rebuild Burrinjuck with a new wall that takes capacity from 1,026 gigalitres to 4,000 gigalitres, which is an additional 3,000 gigalitres of storage. To put that in perspective, the federal government has spent $7.2 billion recovering approximately 2,100 gigalitres through buybacks under the Basin Plan, and buying 3,000 gigalitres on the open market at current prices would cost anywhere from $27 billion to $60 billion. Building the storage costs between $4 and $6 billion. On top of that, a rebuilt Burrinjuck could generate 100 to 200 megawatts of hydroelectric power, bringing in $40 to $60 million a year in energy revenue. It could dedicate over 650 gigalitres to environmental flows without competing with irrigators. And it would act as a flood buffer that protects downstream communities the way Dartmouth Dam does on the Murray, where 70% of flood events have been completely absorbed since it was commissioned. The Murray-Darling Basin produces $30 billion in agricultural output every year and supplies over a third of this country's food. Rebuilding Burrinjuck secures that food production, protects communities from floods, generates clean energy, delivers environmental water, and replaces a dam that is approaching the end of its structural life. Every year we delay this decision, the dam gets older and the cost of inaction gets higher.
Give a hoot, don't pollute our great oceans. We must remove these garbage wind turbines that threaten our wildlife and fisheries.
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. I'm Mike Ryan. Nice to have your company here. Great property here, by the way. We're staying at this magnificent property. I should actually just read it out here, go to my teleprompter in my phone. Not really. It's actually at 6 Sharp Street in Cooma. It's the Cooma Motor Lodge. And it's fantastic. I've got to tell you, great for business. It has, it's just brilliant. Wi-Fi, 350 up. Can you believe it? But if you want to find out more, just go to bookings.com or hop on Google and you can find out the Cooma Motor Lodge at 6 Sharp Street in Cooma. That's where we're staying and we appreciate their help very much. Dr. Lynn Bodell is a veterinarian, and she graduated from Sydney Uni in 1984. After a brief period as a locum around the Riverina and northeast Victoria, Lynn settled in Wagga Wagga, or just Wagga as the locals call it, and opened her own clinic in 1986 and has been there ever since. Now, after further studies, Lynn was admitted as a member of the Australian and New Zealand College of Veterinary Scientists in 1993 in canine medicine. Now, at her farm, which is Korporoo Park, Lynn, together with her husband Rob, who does as he's told, has established an equine training and rehabilitation facility which specialises in the training and rehabilitation of racehorses. Lynn, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Mike. Yes. I
Nice.
see you're in the cool part of the world.
Yes, it's cold.
Mm.
It's freezing. I knew it was going to be cold. I actually brought a Hawaiian shirt with me, and I don't think I'll get the weather to wear it. It's a bit fresh.
No.
But I always threatened that I would do that just to terrorise the locals. This time, I've mentioned that there has to be another way besides killing, because I think killing should be just rubbed out immediately. But how do we? And I mentioned maybe the neutering of male horses to control the numbers. What's your thoughts on that?
Practicality of neutering is probably not in the perspective of the parks to be able to do, but certainly reducing numbers by trapping. And there's certainly some more research needs to be done in fertility control, which doesn't actually require much handling of the horses. Mm-hmm. That is certainly on the agenda and certainly a possibility. So there's no reason why we can't be doing that. And the numbers are so questionable. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, I talked to Peter Cochrane this morning as he was eating his. It's terrible for his health. He's having a breakfast. It was a waffle with cream and strawberries and jam, and it's terrible. Should have had 4 eggs, 16 kilos of bacon, and 4 loaves of bread, as you do if you're an Aussie. But anyway, but he was enjoying it, and the numbers that the ISC and the government are talking about, he would dispute and say that we probably have about 800 Brumbies left, and at the current rate of extinction or shooting, they would become probably an extinct species. That's just me saying that part. They're going to resume it in November, I think.
Yeah. The bottom line is they really don't know how many Brumbies are there. They have no idea. They don't know how many they're killed. They don't know the starting point. They don't know the finishing point. They're just killing for the sake of killing, and unfortunately, they're just not listening to any reason.
Which is a problem, because it would seem that no matter what you're going to throw up at them, they're going to just do it. And I think and again, I mentioned all the way through today, past, I think that to take the management of the park and the controlling of the Brumbies away from the locals has been a monumental failure. It's a failure in many areas, such as policy and humanity and all that sort of stuff. How do we? Because they're not going to give it back to the locals. Then they're going to make sure that the lobby groups, and as Stephen Tripp alluded to before, the ISC has about 130 members. 130 members who I refer to as bridge gluers, most likely. And I think that the game of propaganda and the destruction of people's credibility to pursue their own interests is very evident. How do we get through that? Because you're a vet, you see the pain and suffering, and what they're doing probably goes against the grain of being a vet. How do we get through to government, or do you think that's probably not going to happen? That the government is never going to stop the culling until all the horses are gone. How do we?
How do we do it? That's the $1 million question. Yeah, it is. It's become very, very political. Obviously, look, the crazy notion is, for example, they have inadvertently causing more loss of their the endangered species by killing all these horses than they actually were by leaving them be. I mean, if you look at the logic is they leave all the carcasses there, as I mentioned before, you have the huge explosion in numbers of pigs, all the carnivores that eat all their other little endangered species. So when there's no more horses, they're going to chew through all those little endangered species and wipe them out. So they're inadvertently doing what they don't want to do by killing the horses. And if they would manage the horses, they would have a win-win situation. But it's become such a political football. They're talking about, the net zero, so they're having to remove pests, and the horses are an easy target. They're out in the open. They're very visible. And so they have become the scapegoat. And I just think it's going to have to be a change of government before we actually see any change.
Which, at the current rate of, they're going to get rid of most of the horses very quickly. Now look at the Bogong High Plains. There's, no horses. And, and again, I didn't know about that. This is the, we often talk about a thing called an information operation, and they peddle misinformation or don't peddle anything at all. So that no one talks about it, and most people don't know about it. And, I was one of those, and I feel, a bit stupid because I should have. But if no one talks about it, newspapers don't report it. And what we've done, not us, but what the collective has done is all of a sudden created some interest in this, barbaric approach to these beautiful creatures. The propaganda, I mean, you're a vet, you deal with horses. I mean, racehorses, poor buggers, when they finish running, they want to knock them on the head in many cases. So you see the disdain they have towards creatures that we should be looking after, because we are entrusted to look after those animals. How do you feel when you see the people like the Jack Goffs and the ISC and the Penny Sharps and Chris Minns all on about, well, we've got to save the environment. These horses are destroying the Mount Kosciuszko National Park, for example. Yet you can read about it very comfortably. On government websites where the Minns government wants to privatise these parks. And what would probably say, if I was cynical, would probably say that part of the deal to privatise the park is to get rid of those pesky horses.
Yeah, it's a very convenient way, isn't it? Interesting enough, I said you're not seeing the number of carcasses of pigs or deer or other things up there. You certainly see the horse carcasses, but because they've become, as I said, the scapegoat. On little point you said there about the racing, I do disagree a little bit with that. We have gone a long way in actually now treating racehorses well in the end of his career. So I'd probably say that we've learned a lot with that. But now we've got the Brumbies that have become a political football, and unfortunately a lot of the city people are still believing what the politicians are putting out, and all we can do is try to, what you're doing, which is a wonderful thing, trying to bring it to people's attention and say, you're being told porky pies, guys. This is just not the case. The horses are not doing the damage that they're trying to say they are. It's not an all or nothing situation. We can manage both the park and the horses and the endangered species. It doesn't have to be a total wipeout. That's all we can do.
What's your thoughts on by the way, the racehorse one? I was actually, and my fault here, in the US. Ashley Avis has got a great, I think Wild Beauty Foundation, very good organisation. They actually featured some racehorses that were supposed to have been looked after and were shipped off to the ABS. So the US, I suppose, and other parts of the world too, have got a long way to go to. Look at the Dartmoor Hill Brumbies. They're under threat. They've been there for thousands of years, but they're destroying the environment. Well, they are the environment. But what's your thoughts on the judge's reason for denying last week's attempt to gain an injunction?
Okay, when you deal in the courts, I'm not a lawyer, but you get the law, you don't necessarily get justice. And what happens is, in our case, we have to prove against a government that has unlimited resources, unlimited barristers, that they've been doing the wrong thing. And they have actually changed their standard operating procedure to allow certain shots which actually were not recommended in any of the reports from the RSPCA or the ABA, but they have changed the ground rules. So it has allowed these sorts of things. So it's very hard to prove that they've done things wrong. Plus, they've also prevented people from going in and collecting the evidence that would be necessary to prove it. So if they lock you out and change the ground rules, you are fighting an uphill battle, but we are trying.
So when they changed the ground rules, did they consult with you or anyone else, or was it just over a couple of glasses of wine or whatever, or a way of determining Australia's future? Did they all get together and say, we'll change those rules because we decide to, and we will ignore bringing anybody else's evidence in to determine whether we should change those rules?
They had the evidence there, and that they have pretty much ignored a lot of expert other suggestions, witnesses and things. If you go back to some of the, I think it was a Senate inquiry into it, a lot of information was disallowed or ignored. So, I mean, they're law unto themselves. I'm sorry, they are writing the rules to make it suit them.
Yeah, I just it is actually very disturbing. I mean, one day I'll have a good night's sleep again, but at the moment I'm not. If somebody, and I truly, I tip my hat off to you. I think you're doing a magnificent job. I think you speak a lot of common sense, and we do need that at the moment. If somebody wanted to find out more about you, how would they do that?
I'm on Facebook under Lynn Bodell. I have my own vet clinic. You can contact me through that. Or if they want to contact you, I'm happy for you to give out my email. No problems.
Heartbreaking, isn't it?
Oh, look, I went up there last weekend. It was very confronting, very confronting. I mean, when you love horses and just see the carcasses, it's yeah.
And there's such beautiful creatures, and they actually understand. They know what's happening, and I mean, if you go back, if you look at our history, which they're trying to rewrite, of course, in the ISC and the government, there's got to rewrite history. But if you go back to the First World War, 130,000 Brumbies went to fight with Australians, and one came back. It's a pretty poor way of treating our heroes, isn't it?
Yes, but that was a long time ago, and lots of things have changed. There's always going to be animal cruelty no matter what. And back then, unfortunately, a lot of people suffered a lot of things as well. It wasn't just the horses. So, I mean, a lot of things happened in the past, but we don't have to keep being cruel to the horses now and just traumatising everyone.
I totally agree with you. Lynn, thank you so much for your time. We will do more of these things because I enjoy talking to you. I'm talking a bit quieter at the moment because we have echo in the room. So I'm just, but we're doing it on the road. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it very much. Dr. Lynn Bodell there, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
The Central West renewable rollout could soon be joined by a wave of AI data centres. Unions are pushing for them to be built next to wind and solar farms, saying it could lead to a job opportunity bonanza for locals.
Filled with aisles of computers and servers, the growing demand of power-hungry data centres is being driven on by AI.
Already they use around 5% of the electricity used in New South Wales. And we saw about $2.5 billion invested in data centres in the 2025 financial year.
Currently, only 27 of Australia's more than 314 data centres are based in regional areas. But that could change as the bush leads the electricity transition.
We should be pushing some of these data centres out to the regional areas where renewable energy is being produced.
Analysis by Digital Agricultural Services has identified more than 785,000 hectares of land in the Central West Orana Res as a prime candidate for future data centres. The Electrical Trades Union believes it would reduce the need for further new transmission lines.
So for the Central West of New South Wales, almost 40% of the renewables that's already built out there is not being used because there's not enough capacity in the transmission networks to get it to the cities where people want to use it.
These sort of data centres, these industrial complexes, should be near urban centres and be positioned on low quality lands, not good quality productive lands.
The scars from the renewable rollout laying bare.
We expect that data centres would require a real step up on the failures that we've seen in renewables.
It's really important that they take a firm hand on guiding the industry in a way that benefits regular people. Otherwise, public sentiment's going to turn on them.
The union believes the development could lead to regional broadband upgrades, but also employment opportunities.
An attractive carrot to both bring skilled workers out to the regions and to also create lots of opportunities for local workers.
This is the Country Telegraph. Rachel, by the way, just on those data centres, we put that in because it's going to create employment. It will not create any employment, it will create unemployment. That's what the data centre is all about, is to eliminate humans in particular jobs. And there's no secret about that. And to run the data centre, you need probably a couple of blokes and a dog to run it because they run themselves. So when they say it's going to create employment, it's not. It's just pure spin, just BS. So I don't think it's going to create employment. What it will do is destroy the communities. And that's what they want. It's so obvious. And you think, why are you doing that? Should be looking after the rural community, and they're not. Anyway, just my thought. Rachel McDonald is a proud, now I'll get this wrong, and of course Rachel will remind me that I got it wrong, is a proud Wiradjuri woman, environmental professional, data and analytics specialist, and founder of Telgarth Farm, and a member of New Dawn Safe Haven. Now, with more than 35 years experience across local, state and federal government, Rachel has worked on some of Australia's most significant environmental, climate change and renewable energy reforms. Now, away from technology, Rachel has been around horses since she was knee-high to a grasshopper, a big grasshopper, and has dedicated her life to their care and welfare. Today, she owns Telgarth Farm and has had this as a sanctuary as part of New Dawn Safe Haven, providing lifelong sanctuary for rescued wild brumbies and supporting humane trapping and rehoming programs. Rachel, thank you very much for joining us. Tell me, this must be just a dreadful time for you.
It is a horrendous time for a lot of Australians. We're seeing the most horrendous images of these horses that we feel very deeply for. They are part of our heritage. They helped build the country from colonisation, and you did get it wrong. I am Wiradjuri. You were close, but not quite there, Wiradjuri. So these horses have played a major part in building what we now have as a country, and they are actually part of the Ngarigo people's cultural songlines because they have ingrained themselves in where our people, the Ngarigo people and the Wiradjuri people, and right across Australia. So this is not just limited to the Snowy Mountains, but these horses are part of who we are now in this year of 2026, and it's horrendous to see it.
Can you take us through the issues with government data on the Brumby population?
So the first thing that people need to understand is that the government does not conduct a complete head count every year in the Kosciuszko National Park. It conducts an aerial sample of surveys, which selects current survey blocks, and then it uses a statistical model to estimate the wider population. Now, we all know that the model that they use is the Cairns model, and it is flawed for many reasons. One of those reasons is that it thinks that horses have litters, which they do not, and that every horse in their current population count is a breeding horse, which they are also not, because stallions cannot have babies. So that distinction really matters. And the figures used to justify the killing of these horses are estimates. They're not a physical count. And every estimate, when we're talking about statistics, comes with uncertainty. Now, I am in no means a biostatistician. but I do work with data, and I have worked with data for the last 35 years of my career. So the government says that a count is impossible because the Kosciuszko National Park is very large, which it is, and it's rugged and remote, but horses don't live on the ski fields. Horses don't live right up on the top of the alpine peaks. Horses generally stay, we all know, down on the plains. That's where the bulk of them are. So it uses a distance sampling method where observers record horses that they can see from an aircraft, their distance, and then other variables to put it into the statistical model. Now, just as an example, Mike, what's happening in regards to these numbers? So in 2022, there were 14,501 horses with a range of up to 23,535 horses found as part of their report. 23, 12,797 to 21,760. So you can already see that that's a very broad range when we're talking about the confidence levels in the data, and that's what this is about. But then the interesting part is that in 2024, they changed their modelling and their capture method to a market recapture and distance sampling method, which then resulted in 2,131 horses and a high range of 5,639 in 24. They did an aerial cull in 24. Rocky Harvey did a community count in that time, but we can talk about that in a minute. But then the 25 count, which was only released this May, I should say, on the 22nd of May, had a population of 6,476 up to 16,000 horses. So with a best estimate of about 10,000 horses. So the government cannot explain with any accountability and transparency what that big drop in 24 was about. But we all know those people that ride in the park, those people that live in the mountains, that have generations of history with this country and these horses, we all know that there are not 23,000 horses up there, and they have not been able to provide us with 23,000 carcasses either in their killing. So it's a really difficult thing for us who are so passionate about this, for the government to be looking at these numbers with a statistical model that's flawed, not being transparent, and the confidence level is very low, and the different methods producing different results. So I'm not saying that the statistical population estimate is not to be used. I'm just saying that we need to use it correctly, and that if good science and good data is available, then let it be peer reviewed. Let it out there from a government perspective so that we can all have a look at it and run our own models over it.
They're not going to do that. And if you go back 5 years, government, if you want to have a discussion about something that government has decided to act upon in the path forward, you could hit yourself in the head with a sledgehammer. They're still not going to take any notice. You and the Community Commissioners Survey, why was it important to do this?
It was very important. And just a clarification there, it wasn't me. So there was a whole team of people. Rocky Harvey commissioned the community count, but the community got behind him and raised a substantial amount of money for the count. It was really important because we wanted to show the government that their numbers were wrong. What we had to do was to try and simulate the models that they were using, the transects that they were flying, so the same sections that they were flying over to count these horses, both from a helicopter and then statistically. And it was really important to show the government that we're watching them.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Do you think this is just not even part of the script and the information I have? It would seem that they want to get rid of. I mean, first of all, if you keep telling everybody you've got X amount of horses there and the real numbers are way less, if you eliminate just say 800 horses, and you've been telling everybody that you've got so many thousand there, they would be thinking, well, at least you're going to have a few left. But if you only have 800 horses and they take those horses out, do you think that it would resemble something very much like the Bogong High Plains, where there are really no horses? And is that what they're after?
I think that's exactly what they're after. They want complete eradication of these horses in Kosciuszko. And I don't believe it's for an environmental reason. I believe it's for money.
Tell me about the New Dawn Sanctuary and your farm, Telgarth Farm. Tell us about that, and what are the goals?
Telgarth Farm is my property, and I have 24 horses of my own, and I also rescue thoroughbreds. So getting back to your conversation just earlier with Lynn, I take on thoroughbreds that need a home as well as Brumbies. And I've taken on 10 Brumby foals in the last few years, and I've got 4 bottle babies at the moment, as I call them. New Dawn Safe Haven is part of the rehoming strategy, I call it, and we're an important part. We have 2 sanctuaries across New South Wales and Victoria, and we have 21 horses in our care currently. And why we're an important part of that rehoming wheel is because although we don't necessarily take horses apart from foals directly out of the park, sometimes these horses don't fit into domestic life. They don't fit well on somebody's property because they are very wild, and people don't quite understand that taking on a Brumby, who's an exceptionally smart animal, that it's very different to getting a quarter horse out of the sale yards. And we're there to be the backstop for those horses. So we take the ones that can't be worked with, and we give them lifetime sanctuary where they can be as wild as they need to be, but looked after. There are other sanctuaries that do this, and this is what a very important part of our role as sanctuaries do in the rehoming space.
How can we strengthen rehoming? And it's, again, I from the outset, I think the idea of shooting these horses is just abhorrent, and I think it needs to stop. Just stop. Tell me about the rehoming. How can we strengthen that part of, let's, for want of a better word, the horse industry? How can we start doing a bigger and better job?
I think we as groups of sanctuaries and Brumby lovers and the Brumby community could get together and put together some guidelines that help rehoming once they leave the rehomers, because that's the gap that we currently fill. So once the rehomers, and there are only 4 registered rehomers to take Cosy Brumbies at the moment, once they leave there, then they're in a bit of no man's land, some of these horses, not all of them, but some of them are. So if we could get together and put some procedures and policies in place and some support for people who are wanting to preserve our beautiful heritage lines and take a Brumby for themselves and give them that necessary lifeline when things aren't as easy as they think it's going to be, I think that's going to strengthen what we can do with the rehoming space. But absolutely, rehoming works. The horses that are coming out of the parks, once they get into the rehomers, they're often very calm. There was a lovely video that I saw yesterday of a horse that came out of the parks just a few days ago, and it took 15 minutes to get a halter on her with a very calm trainer, and it was beautiful to see. So these horses are exceptionally smart, and when they're worked properly, when you've got the right facilities, and this is a big thing too, is that people don't understand that you can't just stick a wild Brumby in a paddock and expect it to stay there, because that's just not what they're used to. They're used to roaming over 690,000 hectares. So you need to be able to make sure that people understand what it is that they're getting and help them through the process of settling in. And that's not beyond what we can do as a group of Brumby advocates.
I always think the conditioning of the public is that instead of saying wild, which is a very beautiful term, you use the term feral, and feral is, and you always say it feral. There's never anything nice about it. Feral creates the impression that it's bad for Australia, whereas if you use something, wild, it has its beautiful connotations to it. They're very clever, aren't they, government and all the others? Very clever in demonising what should be something treasured and beautiful. And that's the Brumby, by calling them feral, invasive species, destroying. That's what ferals do. What's your thoughts on that?
It's a very emotive term, isn't it, the word feral?
It's terrible.
Because we not only associate that with animals that are introduced, but we also associate that with people who we don't like too. That's the human nature. So it brings out a lot of emotion when there are, and there's always two sides to every story, of course. When we're talking about a feral animal that has been introduced, or a weed that has been introduced that isn't where it's supposed to be, it brings around a lot of emotion, which causes both sides to have a lot of tension between the two. And that, I think, is what's causing a lot of the issues that we've got at the moment in regards to communication around and education around what we have as a Brumby and what else is impacting the parks in particular, because we do have a lot of feral animals in the park. We have cats, we have dogs, there are pigs, there are deer. All of these things are causing damage, and they've been there a long time as well, but we need to control them. So I'm not against management of these animals, including our horses. We need to manage the horses, but for everything it needs to be managed humanely, and that's not something that we're doing.
No, I think of the terror of those poor horses, and not just the older ones, but also the young ones. And they do know terror and they do know fear, and it's something we shouldn't, as humans, do. I think it's terrible. Rescue work must be very expensive. How do you support it?
So we have a lot of donations from fundraising. A lot of our horses are sponsored in the New Dawn Sanctuary, and I know that this happens across most, if not all, sanctuaries, that the horses are sponsored. It doesn't go anywhere near meeting their needs, the sponsorship, but I put in a lot of money personally, and I know that a lot of our other sanctuary owners and committee members do put in a lot of money personally to help our horses. And it's because of our love of these animals and the need to keep them safe that we do this. So yes, it is very expensive. We also look at where we can get sponsorship for items to auction, and we auction these items, and that brings money in to our committee in particular to help these horses. And then we get reduced prices on hay and fencing materials because it is required to keep these things moving and to keep these animals coming through. So yes, it is very expensive, and that's how we do it. There's a lot of public support, but we do a lot of it privately.
Doing a great job. Thank you so much on behalf of all the community and all of Australia. Thank you very much. If somebody wants to be part of your organisation, to do their bit, how do they do that?
So we have a Facebook site, New Dawn Safe Haven, and we have a very big group, Brumbies Without Borders, and it's the New Dawn team that admin that group. We've got over 62,000 people in that group at the moment that are continuously communicating with us and petitioning government. So the best way to contact us is through our Facebook group, which is New Dawn Safe Haven.
You know, Rachel, I can see the halo above you. So that would insinuate that if you get to heaven before me, which I doubt, but if you do get there before me, if you can just put in a good word, because you are doing a magnificent job and you will go to heaven. Me, I'm not so sure about it, but I've had a good time, let me tell you. Rachel McDonald, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Let's hope we can do something good for for what we're doing at the moment to bring the attention that what's happening to the Australian Brumby in Mount Kosciuszko National Park is an atrocity and it's terrible. We need to stop it. This is not how Australians look after other Australians. They are not feral, they are wild, but they have a great history and heritage, and we need to start recognising our history, because if we don't, we can't move forward. This has been the Country Telegraph. I'm going to go out with this track at the moment. Cam, don't you push that button yet. We'll catch you tomorrow in the Australia's top, as they call it. We're at Cooma at the moment. As I said, we're at the Cooma Motor Lodge. Great people, fantastic. At 6 Sharp Street in Cooma. Just go online, find their address, and book. Do it straight through the property itself. You get a great deal. We have got running water and everything. No, they're very good, fantastic. Good on you, Norm. And met Norm's dad too. My wife did, and a great guy too. So thank you very much to everybody here. This has been our first gig away from the studio for the Country Telegraph. Thank you so much. It will get better, and we'll be in some pretty wild places. I've been, thanks to Peter Cochrane, who's lent me a four-wheel drive. My other one, which is a scooter. No, it's not, but it wouldn't have got very far at all. Thank you so much. I'll leave you with this song. Have a great day, and thank you for being part of the experience here in Australia's top in the mountain area of Mount Kosciuszko. And today, from Cooma, this has been the Country Telegraph.
Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mirror I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Brumby hoofprints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains my fellow Brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now. Shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace, the Snowies are my clan. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain. The sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound. Though every instinct tells me run, there's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. I don't know fall upon the ground. Thunder. Again and again, my heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home. The snowy mountains were ours. Tell my fool I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my fool I tried to save them. Tell the wind how Brumbies fall. Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye.